Welcome back to another episode of Logistics Remix. Today's guest has spent 2 decades shaping parcel logistics across FedEx, Geodis, Kenco, and now Crane Worldwide. Oscar Gladman is the Vice President of Parcel Distribution at Crane Worldwide Logistics, where he's leading the company's dedicated parcel solutions business. His work focuses on building scalable parcel networks, managing multi-carrier procurement, and integrating tech stacks to deliver smarter, more efficient outcomes for global shippers. Before Crane, Oscar led parcel strategy at Kenco Group and Geodis. He founded Shipalytics, a SaaS platform to help SMBs analyze parcel spend, and spent 14 years at FedEx, where he rose through sales and leadership roles. Oscar, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I was looking forward to this conversation. Let's dive right into it. I want to start with your early career. You worked for FedEx for 14 years. What are the biggest lessons you took from that experience that still guide how you lead today?
Yeah, it was a great run. 14 years. Wow, it's hard to believe, and it's hard to believe that I've been gone from FedEx for so long. It was such a big part of my life. But I'd say the biggest takeaways for me, really culture. FedEx, I think, is well known for its people, service, profit philosophy. Something that Fred Smith created and was deep within the organization. Is this idea that if you take care of your people, then inevitably that will provide outstanding service. And if you provide outstanding service, then undoubtedly you'll be able to generate revenue. So I've taken that with me, and then of course, with Mr. Smith as the leader, it was a very disciplined environment, about execution, about consistency, and so I think those things I've been able to take with me as well, and then. Just back to the PSP philosophy, I think one of the biggest takeaways, there's still, I guess maybe it's changing a little bit, but logistics is a people business, people serving other people. And I will get into talking about data and how important it is, but still at its core, I think I recognized early on that this is a people business.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, and you were there when Fred Smith was really kind of ramping the company and growing it, and it's he's built quite an enterprise, from startup to a logistics giant, and so you worked at a company that was pretty large and selling those services and working with people and servicing them, but then you decided to transition out and move to the other side. But what was that like? You left FedEx, you were selling, you were leading teams at FedEx, and then you decided you're going to go to the other side and become a 3PL executive. You're managing and negotiating with carriers, so really sitting on the other side of the table. What was that transition like?
Yeah, it was quite a transition. And I'll have to say, I really enjoy sitting on this side of the table a whole lot more than I did on that one. So, to all of my carrier reps, I love you. But it's been an interesting experience, kind of making that shift. I took a couple of years in between, where I was building a company and operating that, and just got it, by chance involved with 3PLs, and started to really see what their model was for generating revenue and value for for the company and for their customers. Coming from one side where it's really all about selling capacity. Now I'm buying it and then trying to optimize it. And one of the as someone who interacted with customers, large customers, regularly at my time during FedEx, I really do try to approach my relationships As I said, it's a people business. I believe that at my core, but make data-driven decisions with strategic partners. Um, and of course, there's always a balance on the kind of the purchasing side and the management of that, and kind of how we are able to manage those relationships. But um, there's a big difference from going from a $100 billion company to, $10 billion company, then a 2 billion, $3 billion companies. Um, where I mentioned structure before, and hierarchy, kind of slow to move the ship at FedEx. It's just a well-oiled machine. Um, but working for smaller organizations has given me the opportunity to have a greater impact, um, and move more quickly, and solving customers' problems.
Yeah, and I bet when you're sitting across the table from carriers, coming from one of the largest carriers in the world, I mean, you've got those insights to maybe even jump to like solving problems for them. I'm trying to think about like there's got to be some advantages for you in being in their shoes.
For sure. I mean, the position I was in before I left the company, I was a manager of enterprise sales at the time. So my team of sales individuals were responsible for, um, some of our largest enterprise accounts, and in the region where I was. And so the sales reps that are calling on me now are the equivalent of the individuals that I would have been managing in the past. And so it is, I sometimes I kind of forget that I'm the customer. I'm out to dinner and I'm talking to them, and I kind of get back into that like coaching mode of, after we sign the agreement, of course, um, hey, here's some things that maybe I do a little differently next time. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, it's been something that's been a benefit to me and the companies that I work for, having those insights for sure.
I bet. Now you recently joined Crane Worldwide Logistics. So can you tell us a little bit about the company and why you joined them and kind of the things that you're working on?
Yeah. So Crane is a privately held freight forwarder, global 3PL, um, about a $3 billion organization, really known for, um, again, that people-centric, very um, agile company with great relationships, and we create these long-term partnerships. I've known of Crane and the family for many years, and have admired the organization. um, they they reached out and wanted to build upon these strengths that they already had, and really, put a stronger focus on parcel and parcel solutions. So um, I've been very lucky throughout my career to work for great companies and great people, and you know, uh, but I had never had the opportunity to really build and scale a new parcel solution, um, from the ground up. And so uh, this opportunity for me was really exciting. Um, there's so many synergies across the organization, the customers, and what we're doing today to really do some fun things here. So that excited me. The entrepreneurial, part of me kicked in, and I've been here now for a little 6 months, and um, we'll say I have absolutely no regrets. Really enjoying it. Been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, that's awesome, and you get to build, which sounds like it's in your DNA to build something. We'll talk about later in the conversation. We'll talk about something that a business that you started. But back to Crane. Um, Earlier when we spoke, you mentioned that you're overseeing not only U.S. parcel business but also the parcel business in Europe. And I'm wondering if you can just talk to like what are the biggest differences you see between the U.S. parcel delivery business and then the European parcel delivery business?
Sure. Yeah, and it's fresh in my mind. I was in Europe all last week, visiting our distribution centers, and really impressed with our team there. I spent most of my time in the Netherlands, around all around the country, actually, north and south, um, just kind of observing, what we're doing today, and serving some really outstanding, really fun customers with some great products. So had a blast there. But in terms of your question, um, the differences, I mean, the United States is so vast, and it's controlled by, historically, FedEx, UPS, Postal Service, and uh, it- you know, we have regional players within the United States, and they continue to grow, but um, we'll probably, I think we can talk about it, maybe later, but there there hasn't been incredible traction throughout my career. FedEx and UPS have been the leaders up until very recently, I would say. Um, and I think I experienced firsthand, just how different that is in Europe. I mean, we're, um, you know, the density, shorter zones, more regional players. They have strong postal infrastructures. And so there are a lot more options in Europe. We have a lot of options here. Not every shipper can take advantage of them. Um, a lot of options in Europe. I think people adopt them more so there than they do here. Um, but there are challenges there as well to overcome. I think, frankly, just you know, having three carriers that are very large from a technical perspective, integrating into your business. You have standards to a degree. Um, the technology is reliable in terms of making API calls to carriers and getting fast responses and getting the information you'd expect to be able to make decisions quickly. When you're dealing with 80 carriers of varying sizes, the technology budgets are not as great. When you make an API call and you ask a small carrier in south of Italy for the price, the transit time, the zone, uh, you know, you may or may not get a response to all of those questions. And so there's some challenges you kind of have to work around in order to be able to take advantage of all of the carriers that exist in that marketplace. But um, the last thing I would say, that I guess it's always in the back of your head, here in the States, but a lot more in the forefront, as I was in Europe, is really just a focus on sustainability. And so, I mean, that certainly is a big deal for the carriers, both here, but I would say more so a very strong, serious approach about measuring our footprint, and focusing on sustainable solutions for shipping that maybe we don't see to the same degree here in the United States.
That's really interesting. And so it sounds like it's a much more highly fragmented market, and the technology kind of standards are not kind of what you're seeing in the U.S.
Certainly
With
feels that way. Yeah. I mean, naturally, the integrators are still, very large in Europe. FedEx, UPS, DHL, Express, very large. But um, but boy, the access to so many different regionals and the niches in every small market, really, um, provides a lot of opportunity. And the struggle is similar here as it is there. Is how it's the first mile. How do I get my parcels into the network of these various regional providers? But I feel like Europe is a little bit ahead of us on building out solutions and options to be able to inject into those types of networks. So
That's interesting. Can you like double click on that? Is it mostly a ground service that's being used? Do you see kind of like the distribution between ground versus air shipments about the same as in the U.S., or I guess like ground versus like express delivery?
sure. Yeah, it's funny, like, to me, when I look at the data, I see ground, 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 ground. But then I see the transit times, and they're all 1 and 2 days, right? So, because of the shorter zones, because of the proximity, the mileage that's traveled, um, depending on where your facility is located within Europe, um, I in my case, I see a lot more ground, shipping that's occurring, but the speed of the ground services is pretty incredible.
Yeah, shorter distance. That totally makes sense. What about on the rate side? Like, are there any commonalities or differences? Everyone starts with the base rate, but in the U.S., we're so used to accessorial charges, those delivery area surcharges, residential fees, dimensional weight calculations, and look, I mean, there's like pages, right, of surcharges, especially with the national carriers. What are you seeing in Europe? Are you seeing the same thing, or is it more streamlined?
Yeah, see, like, I don't want to oversimplify it. And then, of course, in the comments, we'll have people saying, Oscar, you're crazy. But in my head, as someone who's been doing this for, over 20 years, yes, there were like wild differences between parcel transportation in Europe and the United States. And we'd have to spend an entire podcast kind of picking away at all the different nuance. But in general, my feeling is um, there's there there's a lot of commonality, like, not, from my perspective, you know, nothing new under the sun. So the integrators, the more sophisticated, better technology, better ability to capture revenue for um, every value added service that they provide, right? Smaller carriers, smaller capability, maybe they service, a smaller, more uh, dense area, and so the complexity for them to deliver um, doesn't necessarily require all the additional things. So I think there's commonality in my mind there with the United States and with Europe. We see regionals very often. It's all over. LinkedIn. Their big value proposition, like, we don't have surcharges. We're simple. And sure, if you pick up and deliver 1 to 10 pound packages to, and you only deliver to major metro areas, then you don't really have a huge need for surcharges. But when you're an integrator like FedEx or UPS, and you're picking up 1 to 150 pound packages, and you'll deliver to every zip code in the country and 210 countries around the world, you're going out to the middle of nowhere, flyover state, and making a delivery of a 130 pound transmission in a really odd box that costs the company more than it does to deliver a 4 pound package to, Midtown Manhattan. So, I think they kind of get a bad rap sometimes, the nationals, for having surcharges, but they are providing more services. So, anyhow, I
I
went
think
on a
that's fair.
tangent there, but yeah, I think there's some commonality in terms of those things throughout Europe as well.
So commonality across just process, rates and standards, and um, it sounds very. I mean, it sounds common. I'm not as familiar with the European market. I'm sure you're getting up to speed on it. Sounds like an exciting endeavor there at Crane. Let's talk about today's market, though. I want to talk about, we're seeing more competition. There's more capacity, and we're talking about the parcel market. I want to say slowing demand. I mean, compared to where it was 3 years ago. How do you approach carrier procurement in this market? Like, is it more about rates, diversifying risk, or carrier performance? What are you focusing on?
Yeah. I mean, you can give me the best rates in the world, but if you're not going to deliver my packages, then, we got a problem. So, I know, it's a balance, right? We set expectations, for the, you know, as a 3PL, what kind of customer, am I working on behalf of? So, um, if we have high value goods that are very fragile and 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 super important, you know, then certainly performance and service is going to be placed as a priority, full stop. If we're shipping like used T-shirts, that very low cost, low expectation on service, then I think we're willing to give up, and the customers that we serve will inform us really what's most important to them, based on what the end consumer expectation is going to be. So I think it varies, but in general, I think, performance is kind of like your foundation, and then cost is a lever that we're pulling. You know, managing that now, it's no different than any other part of my career. It's changing so frequently. It's such a dynamic environment. Um, you know, it seems like every day you turn on the news, there are changes that are impacting um, the the U.S. economy and the global economy, and those, um, there's a need to react to that, and that's where from the start of my career, I was always very focused on um, data-driven decisions. Well, this is a people business. We're going to get to know each other very well. I'm going to feel good about you. You're going to feel good about me. But at the end of the day, um, there has to be a business justification for a decision that's made. And data is going to tell us the story there. Um, so
Makes
I,
sense. That makes sense. I mean, I think, listen, I think, and there's a lot of data out there. I mean, right? I think data, especially in logistics, is interesting. We're not just shipping goods, but there's a lot of information being passed about every single delivery, and it's a critical part of a supply chain, critical part of logistics. Well, let's jump into the data. I want to ask you if, when you're managing multiple carriers, right? Not just a single source operation.
yep.
And so, when you look at the data, look at the KPIs, which KPIs matter most to you? Are there any must-haves that you think every parcel manager just needs to be looking at?
Yeah, of course. I think they're the obvious ones, the must-haves. You got to measure your on-time performance and, your average cost per package. I like to break down, cost metrics and performance metrics. So from a cost perspective, you mentioned it, surcharges, looking at average base charge, average total accessorial charge per package, um, you know, on the financial side, invoice accuracy, so just, measuring our audit performance and recovery, um, KPIs around contract commitments. If you are using multiple carriers, just making sure that the levers that we're pulling, we're doing so in a strategic way, so that we can maximize the service and the cost that we are able to present to our customers. Um, I mentioned, but before Europe, their emphasis on sustainability. I think the nationals in particular are getting much better at providing us data that we can use to actually measure accurately our carbon emissions, and I think that will continue to improve. But I think it's an important thing for us to focus on, and a data point to provide. Um, and then I mean, I mentioned we have different types of customers that we serve. And so all of our contracts with our customers are a little bit different, but more than anything, the biggest KPI that concerns me is just the customer success rate. So, what expectations have I set with my customer? What have they promised their end customer? And have I been able to facilitate that transaction with ease for them, so that um, they can provide a great experience to their customers? Yeah. And there's a
Totally.
lot more, but I
Yeah.
talk for
Well,
days.
especially in our world, look, I think especially in the e-commerce world, the e-commerce businesses, they grow not just on first orders, they grow on repeat orders, right? And
Absolutely.
delivery is such a critical part to converting a customer from a first-time buyer to a repeat buyer. And so I ultimately think logistics and it is so important. The last mile is so important and such a big extension to what to that experience to get that customer to come back. Imagine if delivery fails, the likelihood of that customer coming back is much lower.
Certainly makes it a lot more difficult for that, growing brand to, you know, to make a good impression. So, yeah, I mean, I say parcel carriers and logistics providers, warehouses, and really have a significant impact on customer experience and a brand's ability to grow or fail. We all read the 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 stories on LinkedIn of the great experiences and the poor experiences that can ultimately drive the success of a new brand. So super important to be
Totally,
mindful of
totally.
that. Yeah.
Hey, just curious on the carbon emission side and
Mhm.
measuring that in Europe. Are you seeing the drivers there to improve that KPI being like the electrification of the fleet or something else? I mean, it's probably a few things involved, but just curious if you kind of had some insights to share there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and again, because of their density, they can do some things that we probably will never be able to do nationally. Um, but
Bicycle delivery? Are we talking
bicycle, like, see a lot of, especially in the Netherlands, see a lot of bicycles delivering all types of things. So you have that, you have electrification for sure. Parcel lockers in Europe and around the world are a lot more popular than they are in the United States for whatever reason. The parcel lockers have never taken, really ever seriously taken off in the United States. Um, we are we Boy, we're a tough group to please, aren't we? It has to be on my doorstep. Someone has to walk it up and set it there nicely. But I think the expectations are different, which allows Europe to be able to achieve some of those. But yeah, definitely just cleaner ways of moving parcels, whether it be on a bicycle or an electric vehicle or otherwise. Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and then it's interesting that you brought up the parcel locker delivery. It totally makes sense. But we're just not used to it here
hate it.
in the
No,
States. No
whether
way.
it's a parcel locker or whether
Yep.
it's, and I know my FedEx and UPS friends are going to hate me for saying this, but the delivery to a UPS store or to a FedEx, office closest to your home. Yes, it reduces the cost for the shipper. And like when it's pitched to me, I always think it's wonderful, but the adoption rate outside of major cities where customers are concerned about porch piracy, because they live in a 120 floor, high rise. Um, it is just not something that customers in the United States adopt. And I would love to see it take off because as someone who has to manage a budget for parcel shipping, there's a lot of savings in delivering to commercial addresses. But yeah, our consumers are a little pickier, I think,
Totally.
about that. So
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, but maybe someone will prove me wrong.
yeah,
Um, let's talk about so to measure that, to leverage data, right, and look at those KPIs, you got to use some technology tools. Uh, Managing multiple carriers, there's multi-carrier platforms, there's WMS systems in the warehouse, and some kind of analytics platforms, some audit platforms. Like, I'm just wondering what you're seeing recently in terms of how these platforms are driving better outcomes for shippers today. Like, have they been evolving, or are they the same way they looked, 5, 10 years ago?
yeah, I would say, from my perspective, about 80% of it is generally the same. A little bit better technology as technology has progressed, but generally speaking, the same. I would say the most change I've seen is just in the last year or year and a half, where I mean, my goodness, I 10 years ago, I had software vendors coming to me telling me about AI and, how they're building their whole platform around AI, and it's going to make, it's going to make decisions for us. And I test it and use it, and it's just basic math in the background. There wasn't really a practical application, and it really felt like that up until this past year. I think when generative AI became more broadly used by just the public, then we saw software providers kind of integrating it and finding more practical ways to either speed up their development process or um, or you know start moving us closer to like decision automation instead of visibility. That is where I believe we're headed in the next couple, 1 to 3 years in terms of technologies. The buzzword for so long is visibility, 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 and that I think we've all gotten pretty good at visibility. Like we can find data points and we can show you those data points and we can group those data points for you. But I mean, uh, being shown that you're doing something wrong every day is not fixing a problem. But being shown that you're doing something wrong and being given a solution, I think is where we're headed. So I think we're moving more towards you're doing this wrong. Here's your visibility, and here's the decision that you need to make. And oh, by the way, I'm going to make it for you so that you don't even have to interact with me because I know what you want, based on the kind of a rules-based system. So I do think it's changing drastically now, but it's been pretty stagnant for a long time. And I think it's a really exciting time right now for parcel technology and logistics technology in general.
Yeah, totally. I think the new world of AI, the large language models, and where they're moving into agentic AI, where you're actually going to be able to take some action. I think there's going to have some real, it's going to drive some real change to our processes in the last mile delivery. I think we're yet to see kind of exactly how it's going to all work out, right? Because it's like, hey, this is great. I use ChatGPT almost daily, and I can see the value that it drives for me. But then, how does it apply to last mile delivery? I think it's going to be. I think is yet to be seen. I don't think anyone's really invented anything super cool or super new yet, unless I'm missing something.
No,
But
I
but I think we're in early
agree.
days, right? I mean, ChatGPT just launched 2 years ago, so we're.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how this technology gets adopted into last mile.
yeah, yeah. Likewise, yeah. Again, we continue to hear about it. To your point, I don't think we've seen anything kind of break onto the scene. It's like this has changed the way I work. But I am seeing technology companies that I work with move faster in improving their existing technology through the use of you know of of AI. Just in I think we all recognize that it's making programmers much more efficient than it did in the
Oh,
past. So I
totally.
think that's one of the biggest kind of takeaways from me.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. You can give them a new feature request or give them feedback on a
Yeah.
feature. They could probably build it out,
Yeah, it used to be
a
a
number of
9 month
times.
right? I need to add a
Yeah.
carrier.
It's
I
not going to
need to
take
do
me.
this. I
It's
want
not
this
going to take me three
dashboard.
more months to do it.
Yeah.
Right. They could probably
Yeah,
do
it's
it
that
in a
stuff. I
day.
I feel like it's hitting us a lot faster now. Like technology providers that are um, you know, p- uh, the top tier technology providers, I think, are able to kind of react, respond, and provide better service than they probably could,
Yeah,
years back.
which I think is extremely valuable. Saves a lot of time, gets things out there in the market faster. Well, let's talk, speaking of technology, you have some tech startup experience of your own. You started a company called Shipalytics.
Yeah.
Just curious to learn more about that company and like when you started it, what did you see missing in the market that needed a solution?
Yeah. When I was at FedEx, I interacted with customers daily, and it started off my career in the kind of small to medium sized market. Spent a lot of my career in that segment, and I mean, I'd hear it all the time. Uh, I I can't really make sense of your invoices. Why do you give me these you know spreadsheets that you call an invoice with hundreds of thousands of rows of data, and like how am I supposed to know if I'm being charged the right amount or if I'm making the right decisions? And all these we get into a negotiation. I would be, I was with FedEx, so I'd be competing against another carrier, and we'd present the customer with a 38-page PDF proposal with all these discounts off of list rates, and then that customer would have to try to figure out on their own. And again, this small to medium sized segment, try to figure out on their own. All right, is this better or worse than what I have today? And I saw all kinds of wild um, uh, ways that customers were making pretty big decisions for their small to medium sized businesses. These are not the kind of businesses that had access budget wise, or even, would it make sense for them to go to the players that were in the space at the time, the big legacy audit providers that were collecting data and providing value to customers. So I wrote a paper about it when I was doing my MBA and put it on the shelf. And 5 years later, I kept hearing the same thing over and over and over. And the wind blew a certain way, I guess, one day, and I pulled it off the shelf and made some changes. And I said, all right, I'm gonna go after this. Yeah, that was 6, 7 years ago. Uh, Left FedEx, you know, um, built a piece of software from the ground up. Learned a lot through the process, um, and basically just help wanted to create a self-service platform for those types of customers, so that they would have access to what enterprise shippers had access to. Um, and Yeah, so it was a great run. It still exists. I'm a lot less active in the business than I was when I was doing it full time, but it certainly helped me understand and be a more valuable resource, I think, to large companies. In that, on the technology side of things, how to use parcel data to make better decisions.
And you know what? I think that gap in the market, that knowledge gap, in the example you brought up, there's a PDF with pages and pages of discounts, and you've got to add them up and subtract and try to figure out, does this make sense for me? Is this an improvement or not an improvement?
Yeah.
There's still a knowledge gap in the market, especially on the smaller business side. When they're looking at these, it's if you don't speak a certain language, you're basically looking at another language that you're not speaking.
Yeah, it's tough. And I really feel for people, because it's, I mean, there's so many players out there now that offer these types of services, right? I mean, just Goop. There are 100 Shipalytics, versions of Shipalytics, and then we all do the same general thing. Um, and I will say, to build a great piece of technology and to maintain a great piece of technology and to provide great service along with your technology, it is not inexpensive. And so one challenge I found at Shipalytics is I had this kind of like, you know, like this nonprofit approach to a for-profit business. I was so empathetic towards these people that I saw being taken advantage of for so long, that I wanted to build this wildly expensive piece of software and then give it away to everybody for free. And that wasn't the right decision for me or for my customers in the long run, because it's hard to maintain a business without asking for money in return. So, but I do think there's middle ground there, and I'm still very passionate about making sure that the small and medium sized segment has access to tools and people. I think you're a great resource in this industry. There are lots of others of us out.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet, but that are willing to help those folks, and we all used, one piece of technology or another, to simplify things for those customers and help them not get taken advantage of, or at least help them understand exactly the deal they have, and why they have it and what they should be focused on. Let them go run their business and stop focusing on, their parcel invoices. So, um, yeah, it's still a deep passion of mine, and I love having that opportunity as someone who manages parcel at a 3PL. I get to interact with a lot of customers like that, where they're outsourcing their parcel transportation department to me and my team. And it's really important to me that we take care of them and we earn their trust and we're transparent with them, and giving them an opportunity to scale their business, and provide an experience to their customers very similar to what customers get from enterprise type businesses. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think working with someone like yourself, working with one of these platforms, you get to learn a lot.
Yeah,
And so up level someone's knowledge in the space, and then next time they're looking at a contract, they kind of know how to translate it, right? I think
for
it's
sure.
it basically it teaches these companies and these platforms are out there. Not only are they helping in the immediate term, but they're also helping up level someone's knowledge. I think that's pretty big. Pretty cool story. Well, I hope you keep at it. I think with the advent of AI, it's going to make things a lot easier. When we hear these days them talking about the $1 person billion companies, right? Or maybe the
Yeah.
0 person billion-dollar companies that are going to get built at some point. And so I think that's an exaggeration, but ultimately it just goes to show that you're going to be able to do a lot more with the AI tools that are out there that are just getting better every day. Um, well, let's talk about that future though. I want to wrap up with this. Uh, just a glance at the future from Oscar's mind. Like, if you had to predict one or two major shifts in parcel delivery, let's say over the next 5 years, like what would they be?
Yeah. I'm going to try to not get myself in trouble when
I
I answer this.
bookmark this one. Mhm.
Yeah. It's, you know, I think the next 5 years, I think we will see dramatic change in the parcel world.
Say more.
Um, I think what we're seeing companies like DoorDash and Uber do, is really interesting and compelling. Um, and there are other companies that are solving problems to connect regional networks together, um, to make them a more viable option for customers of all size. And I think that's been the biggest challenge for regionals, or really any competitor of the nationals, is that they couldn't access all businesses in the United States. And I think we're going to see access to be able to diversify come far down right now. Even today, it's still a pretty enterprise driven machine. I think we're going to see that come way down market over the next 5 years. Um, we see UPS and FedEx, making significant cost cuts to their business and leaning things out. Um, I, I think that's strategic on their part, because I know I think they recognize that there will be a challenge for them to significantly grow their networks in the next 5 years. And there are lots of things that could happen to derail one way or the other, but I think that that legacy duopoly world that we've lived in, and there have been a lot of people out there preaching it for a lot longer than I have, and I've always been the one going, no, it's not going to happen. The nationals do things that no one else will do, and to an extent I believe that will still be the case, no one is going to match their infrastructure, and the power that they have. But I do think they will be very challenged to compete with, this gig economy and some of these very large. I mean, DoorDash, their market cap is double FedEx. I mean, that's crazy to me. So those companies coming into the space and getting serious about parcel, and now Amazon, of course, whew, it is going to be a battlefield. So,
All right, so we're gonna watch the tech disruptors.
yeah,
Got to watch the tech disruptors in this space.
I think so. And again, I can't wait to read the comments. I'm happy to be called a fool. I don't have a crystal ball. I do not know what's going to happen. I'm one man with one opinion, and that's the thing that really strikes me as interesting. I'll say that. How's that? It
Yeah,
strikes me as
totally.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh, totally. No, listen, I think it's great for you to share your insights. I think you've got a glimpse of not only of the parcel world, not only being on the 3PL side managing, and procuring from carriers, but being on the other side, actually building the solutions, selling the solutions. See, so it kind of you get two sides of the table, which I think is an advantage. So appreciate you coming on the pod. Thanks for joining, sharing your perspective, which has been awesome. And talking about how parcels evolving and changing what you're seeing. But before we go, where can people learn more about Crane Worldwide Logistics or connect with you?
Yeah. Well, first, before I go, I want to say thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure talking with you, and I love seeing your insights all the time on LinkedIn, and now your podcast. Wish you great success with what you've continued to be building. So I think it's wonderful.
Thanks, that
Um,
means a lot.
yeah, you bet. But where can you find Crane? Best place, I would say, go to craneww.com. Learn more about our business there. Um, from my, if you want to get in contact with me, I'm pretty active. At least I used to be pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm looking for the chance to get back to that at some point, but I've been a little busy lately. But I can reach out to me there. Happy to talk to folks there. Just look up Oscar Gladman in LinkedIn. But yeah, thanks again for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the podcast. And listeners, as always, subscribe to the Logistics Remix channel on YouTube for more conversations that make sense of shipping. Give us a like, and thanks for listening. See you next time.